Jewelry allows you to imbue a biography. As a designer, I love finding ways in which that biography can be imbued into the materials and allow for the people who are wearing it to then take that biography, that slate that Heidi and I have laid out for them, that canvas, and then they can paint upon it. And that's, for me, why jewelry.
Welcome back to The Materialist, the podcast that explores the stories behind the objects we bring into our lives. I'm Mark Bridge, founder of At Present, matchmaker to extraordinary jewelry, and I am your host. On this episode, we have a very special treat for you. The first ever live recording of The Materialist in front of an audience. In early December, we got together at Parcel on the Lower East Side in New York City to introduce a new collection from James Banks Design. To mark the event, we brought together three thoughtful guests to talk about why jewelry matters. Adam Schulman and Heidi Nasser-Fink of James Banks, and Will Kahn, editor, illustrator, and all-around jewelry aficionado. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Welcome to The Materialist. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. We set this up with the couch, thinking that someone was going to sit on the couch, and it turns out nobody did. So.
There'll be therapy later.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Dr. Schulman. Thank you for coming. Welcome. Welcome to The Materialist. I am Mark Bridge, the founder and CEO of At Present. We are the matchmaker to extraordinary jewelry. We have a website that showcases 50 of the most exciting, emerging, and independent jewelry designers from around the world. And I will be your host for the evening. For those of you who are new to the pod, The Materialist is an exploration of material culture. It is a product of my lifetime in the jewelry business and my fascination with the things we choose to make, the things we choose to sell and bring into our lives. It's an attempt to understand why these things matter, and maybe even provoke a little bit, do they matter if we've dedicated our lives to these things? Should we have? I was the kid who watched Mr. Rogers visit the crayon factory, and I have never overcome that sense of wonder in human creation and creativity. I have the privilege of meeting and knowing some of the most talented and interesting people in the jewelry world. And the best part of my job is talking with these remarkable artists. So I wanted to be able to share some of these conversations with a broader audience. Tonight, I am delighted to introduce you to three such awesome people, and I'm so honored that they joined us for this conversation. Starting from your right, first I'd like to welcome Will Kahn. Will is the editor, curator, illustrator, and jewelry lover who has done more for promoting independent jewelry and unique things than pretty much anybody else that we know. His work has brought jewelry to life for millions of readers in publications like W and Town & Country, and his fabulous Instagram account, Will's Notebook, which has been called the treasure trove of ideas and inspiration. To the side, I'd like to introduce Adam Schulman and Heidi Nasser-Fink, the creative talent behind one of our favorite jewelry brands, James Banks Design. They are an unusual and unusually prolific partnership. Their work spans genres, media, and indeed culture. And I hope they'll tell you a little bit more about themselves as we continue. But to start, maybe we'll start with a foundational question. Why jewelry? All of us have dedicated our lives in some measure to this thing that many people consider to be superfluous, consider unnecessary. It's a group of very thoughtful people here. Why this?
I'm happy to start.
Yeah, please.
Storytelling. Jewelry allows you to imbue a biography. I remember as a kid falling in love with jewelry, not because of what it looked like, but because my mother would bring me into her closet and she told me stories about my grandfather, James Banks, and the pieces that he designed for my grandmother. And she walked me through the occasions. And she was able to tell me about my grandparents. I learned about my grandparents through that medium. And I think it's a beautiful way for humanity. It's been hundreds of thousands of years, jewelry's been a way of us understanding cultures, the materials they had access to. And so for me, it's really about the storytelling. And as a designer, I love finding ways in which that biography can be imbued into the materials and allow for the people who are wearing it to then take that biography, that slate that Heidi and I have laid out for them, that canvas, and then they can paint upon it. And that's, for me, why jewelry.
It's been a, excuse my voice, everyone. It's been a way of expression and telling people about what they have and came from since the birth of man.
And for context, Adam, you are the sketcher, you are the architect, and Heidi is the general contractor. Is that the right way to think about?
No, I don't think so. I think it's really, it's a dance, right? Heidi will be working on something, and in the studio, and she'll send me a picture, and I'll be like, she'll be sending me a picture of something we're working on together, but then she'll have something in the corner, I'll be like, what's that thing over there that you're working on? And I'll see something in the shadow, and then I'll be like, what if it did this? And she'll be like, what if it did this? So it's really, in terms of the design process, I would say it's really an equal collaboration. And then Heidi is the brilliant hands that craft it and make it real and materialize it.
It's great, the two of us, though, we have different ideas of how peace would be created, but we end up with something that just alone wouldn't be as that piece.
And Will, for you, you are an appreciator of jewelry.
Yeah, I think it's twofold for me with jewelry. I think I have very core memories of jewelry with my grandmother. She was she is a glamorous woman, and she would take me around as her her husband died when I was young, and then I was her companion, and we would go on these trips, and we would look for opals, and we would find a new ring for her, and she would touch it to my face and be like, lapis always is cold to the touch. There was these weird chord memories with jewelry. I then came back to it when I was an accessories editor at W, and I was like, you start in hosiery and belts and things like that, and you work your way up, and the apex of accessories is jewelry. So it's like when you really want to be the accessories director, you have to learn jewelry. So I left W magazine to go to Town and Country to learn jewelry from at the Jewelry Bible, at the apex of jewelry in the magazine world.
And it's the apex because it's the most complicated, because it's the most emotionally rich.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of complications with jewelry. Yeah, there's a lot of issues, like things you need to learn by being around it a lot. Don't pull jewelry in December, because don't allow hairspray around pearls, because
Right.
I've been on set with Edward Enninful, but we were jumping to cover Mikimoto pearls from hairspray because they were about to get ruined and things like that. You just it's like a master's
But touch the
degree.
pearls, right? If you leave
Yes.
them untouched, they'll shrivel. They need to actually be felt, which I think is another beautiful.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the feeling of pearls. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's just the master's degree of jewelry, of accessories is jewelry.
The podcast is called The Materialist because there is, I think, among a lot of us, an obsession with material. And I think it was just interesting what you were saying about pearls. These are things that we touch. There's an intimacy with these things. Would you first consider yourself a materialist, and what does that mean for you?
I think we're all materialists. I think we just inherently are materialists. I think that's part of the human condition. I wouldn't call myself, so then yes, I am a materialist, but in terms of what materials I like, it's about, I wear the things that tell me a story. I have this ring, it's from the 60s, from France. It happened to have my mother's initials, which is also my two sons' initials on it, and that's the reason why I wear it, because of that memento, that moment that it recalls for me. And so in that regard, yes, but I like to have few things, right? I'm not seeking to have a closet that's full of a million different outfits. I like what I like because it feels right to me. It makes me feel like myself. So in that regard, that's how I'm a materialist.
Curated.
Yeah, curated.
I'm curious, Heidi, when you're making something, it starts with something that is objectively precious, right? If you're using a precious metal, if you're using fine gemstones. But is there a moment when it comes to life?
Adam and I always say that something isn't ready until it sings. And you could feel when you're working with a metal and working on the textures and the form, you know when it feels right. And it literally, you look at it, it says, I'm ready to go to market. I'm ready to connect with people. That's what we strive for with our work. And I feel I have, and Adam as well, a pretty good eye. When you look at something, all the elements fall together, and you read it, and you're like, that is a beautiful piece. That looks correct to me from all the museums I've gone to, vacations I've gone to, beautiful meals I've eaten. And I look at a piece of jewelry, and I know, as an Italian, they say cento per cento. I know it's 100%, and you're like, wow. And that's what we strive for, is that 100% for 100%. And again, the path that we all follow in life. You look for these things that reach out and remind you of why we're here and why we push and why we enjoy. And that's what jewelry does. It brings all those things together and you go, this is why. This is why I do what I do. This is why I love what I love. And I curate the materials that I love.
And I imagine, Will, for you, you see a lot of jewelry. What is the feeling of seeing something? Is there an analog to something that sings to you?
Yeah, I think in a similar way, it's a wind vibe where you can get these kind of palpitations when you're seeing something really special. And even when you see things less special, you can get a sort of appreciation. Yeah, where you're just like, okay, when you're talking to the designer, and then all of a sudden you're hearing the story and you're understanding their story, and then it all makes sense and it's coming from a place of creativity and you fall in love with it that way. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to fall in love with jewelry, and I'm lucky enough to do that often.
How do people come to jewelry? How do you discover it? All of you have said something really interesting, that it's something that you got from family or from that sort of experience. Are there other ways that you can get the bug?
My son was born with it. No, seriously.
But you have two sons and only one of the two?
Yes. My youngest came out, and funny enough, my wife, when she was pregnant with him, she was, ironically, never really that into jewelry. And then when she was pregnant with him, she was like, I love jewelry all of a sudden. Why do I love jewelry? And for his 5th birthday, all he wanted was a gold chain. I just want a gold chain, Daddy. So I don't know. I think you're born with it.
Nature or nurture? That was before he knew you. So he was already vibrating with that.
Exactly.
I just connected with jewelry. I always took art classes, and I took a jewelry class, and I could not believe that I could learn how to do that. So from me, a maker's perspective, I loved watercolors, I loved sculpture, I loved painting. But jewelry was something that, like, you could wear it, take it with you, it's portable, and I think it's just as valuable as an art as a painting on a wall. Just because it's on your body, there's the whole craft and the fine art. But I just think that jewelry's cool because you can bring it with you.
And I fell in love with it on the job. I think learning all...
It was better than hosiery?
Yeah, it was better than hosiery. It was like learning all the stories and the makers and all of this huge world behind it, which, like, shoes are great, but there's a richness to the world of jewelry. There's stories, there's history that I think I fell in love with.
Like the patina. We have these butterflies, which Heidi makes, that are really ornate, and they have different metals and different alloys, and they go out one way, and sometimes they come back. The person wants to lengthen the chain, and we see it, and the alchemy of the oil on their skin has changed the butterfly. And I just think that's really a beautiful thing. That I love all types of art, and I think that's a very unique thing to wearable art.
There are few things that are as personal and as long-living as jewelry. Okay, you have clothes that you wear close to your body, but like you don't wear the same shirt every day, and you don't wear it every day for 40 years. Mm-hmm. And so I think it very much becomes part of you. I'm curious, I don't know if you have any children, but I know, Adam and Heidi, that you do. When we think about materials, when we think about stuff, how do you talk to your kids about this? about what you do and about the kind of accumulation and acquisition of things?
It's a really good question. They think most kids just want, we live in a time of demand of Amazon. They see things just show up. It's like magic. Every day it's, Daddy, can I have this? Daddy, can I have that? And I try to just say to them, there's limited amount of resources. I have limited amount of resources. There's other people in the world. They need the resources. If you get all the toys, are there going to be any toys left for anybody else? And so I try to create a sensation of community with regard to material and the finiteness of it.
From my perspective, I remember telling my kids, I said, you know what Mommy does for a living? She makes people happy. I make wedding rings. People say I'd never take, hopefully. Pieces of jewelry, they say I never take it off. 20 years later, 15, however many years, and I said, you know what I do? I make people happy. That's what I do for a living when they were little. My son's out there if he remembers that. So.
And did you buy that?
I very much did.
All right. Good to be able to poll the audience.
Yes.
And I don't have kids.
But how would you answer the sort of question of consumerism, right? That there is, it feels like it is very much a loaded topic for a lot of people. People are either like more or less, less, less. And there is great, I don't know, vociferous argument on both sides. What do you make of that dialogue?
I just try to be very aware of what I'm buying them as just as, like, this is for my niece and nephew, like as an uncle, I just try to be very aware of what I'm buying them and trying not to do a lot of plastics, and I'm just aware of the consumer behavior around kids because it gets so plastic heavy and over the top as far as the amounts. And I think that the interesting thing about jewelry is that when you are buying it, you're always thinking, oh, I'm going to pass this down. This is something that will last, and it's for a reason, and it's a great excuse. I'm going to buy this necklace because I'll give it to my daughter one day, or my niece, or whomever.
But you have worked for a lot of places whose reason for being in the world is selling things. Does that give you any dissonance?
No, because I think what we are selling, or what the dream we are selling, is investing in objects which do last and should be invested in and could be passed down. Like even an Hermes bag, you want that because you're going to give it to somebody, or
They retain their
Yeah.
quality, and they get better with age.
Exactly.
And
Yeah. And it's a testament to the craftsmanship, right? The reason why the Hermes bag, it's worth more the day you buy it than what you paid for it, if you're able to get one. And it's a testament to the human craftsmanship. And so I think there's really something beautiful to be valued in that, especially in a time when technology is so prevalent and really getting in the way of our human physical connection.
Curious where you find inspiration. There were a number of people who were looking up at your collection earlier and asking, is there a through line for all of these things? Where do the ideas come from? And walk us through that journey.
I would first say Adam and I conversing and just talking. Hey, buddy, how you doing? Like, I saw this on a hike, or I was inspired by this. I've been thinking about this, been rolling around in my head, and then it goes from there.
Maybe start by saying how you guys met, because I think there's such an interesting moment of inspiration and kismet, which is what brought all of this about.
Heidi was working with my wife on my then girlfriend on a film, and they collaborated on a piece for me, actually, which is a beautiful leather-bound locket book, and it was just gorgeous. And Annie spoke so highly of Heidi, and she talked about her a lot. And then it came time for me my girlfriend at the time told me a story of how she was feeling about something. And it inspired an idea, which was the Light Keeper, which was the first piece we made. And she was traveling and she was working away, and she said, I just feel like I don't have all the lights in my life with me. And so Heidi and I talked about, how could we hold light through jewelry? What would that look like? And we wound up falling into this premise of a vessel that's clear, that can hold stones. Then those stones symbolize the lights of your life, right? So the emerald represented our dog Esmeralda, and the ruby represented a moment of what I thought she was having, like a phoenix moment in her life where she rose out of something that was really challenging. And so it came out of the poetry of something that someone said that they were yearning for. And then through that collaboration, we're able to come up with these premises. But for me, it comes from either conversation with Heidi or something someone says. Like the code came from, we were working with this beautiful organization called World of Children, and they're a nonprofit, and all the money that they raise goes to children around the world who are in need of something. And they said, we have a key that unlocks, like we want the symbol to be a key that unlocks opportunities for children. And Heidi and I were talking about it, and we said, one key, like that seems pretty simplistic, right? A key opens a door, but to open a child's heart and opportunities, wouldn't that be something that's a little bit more complicated? And so that's when we started to think about the code and how we live by codes, and there are different codes that we abide by that allow things to open. And so we started working with a different premise of a lock and key, and that gave birth to the code collection. So it really does come out of someone's desire to tell a story, and how can we materialize that story?
Once you feed ideas, it's like you open a floodgate. It's just you won't live long enough to see them all to fruition. Because you open it, it's just, we could go on,
And what was the spark for the butterfly?
Spark for the Butterfly was also through romance. She was talking about how she loved butterflies, but they were all, frankly, so cheesy and very childlike, and nothing wrong with that. But as an adult, if you're going to wear something, you want it to reflect where you are in your life. And so Heidi and I were talking about how could you make butterflies out of metal that have the ornateness, that look like real butterflies, and how can we paint with metal? And then Heidi started to go back into her studies of anthropology, and she came across a 14th century Japanese sword-making technique in which they used different alloys and different metals, and she created this whole inlay and these super thin butterflies that feel like real butterflies and look like real butterflies, but it's all done from metal. So that was how that came to be. And it's really those in particular, I think, all of Heidi's work is so spectacular, but those are really like nothing I've ever seen. They're really unique.
I have to agree with that. Editorialize here as somebody who has seen a lot of jewelry. There's jewelry and then there's art. And I think that the admiration that I have, Heidi, for the work that you do is just, it's so artful. And that's for me the sort of things that I am excited to sell, to the point of not adding more stuff into the world, but to enable the things that you want to exist. Here is something of immense beauty that is the product of great talent that people bring into their lives for deeply personal reasons. And Will and I were talking earlier about what is missing from the world and what is missing from the jewelry space. And I think that's it. I think it is telling these stories of things that are truly artful rather than here is today's widget.
Yeah. I hope you don't mind me sharing, but there's a ring that you have that has a story, right? And you brought it to us to try and find a way to keep that story alive in a way that was materialistically pleasing, aesthetically pleasing for your family. But it's really not about it's more about the story inside of it and less about the piece as like an object.
But there's an interesting dance between those two things.
It's true.
This is a ring that my wife's godfather gave to her, and it is this fascinating 1960s pave piece with his initials. It was from his bar mitzvah in Mexico City.
But where's it from? Isn't there a story behind it? More of a story?
Which part of it?
Maybe I'm the artist that was or was he?
So
yeah.
the recipient, so the person who is my wife's godfather is probably the world's leading expert in Mexican modernism. And we were actually with him last week in Dallas, and he had curated an exhibit of Frida Kahlo at the Dallas Museum of Art. And so he was inspired by this idea of the heart. And could we make a heart locket out of this? And my wife is not a heart person. I don't think she has ever owned a heart piece of jewelry. And he's saying, make a heart out of this ring. And I sent it to Heidi and Adam. And they start riffing on things. And Adam is finding these reference points of hearts in Frida Kahlo art. And whoa, okay, that's really interesting. And there is this fascinating interplay between what the object is, and we haven't done anything with this yet. This has probably been 6 months, and we're still ideating on this. And Heidi was just saying earlier tonight, I don't know, there's something about this ring that's actually really cool the way that it is.
Yeah.
And so it is the idea, and it is the life that's lived, and there actually is something about the object itself and what it tells about a place and a moment in time and an individual.
And when you sent me that ring, I went through a journey imagining who is this guy,
Yeah.
Frida Kahlo.
Yeah.
So it's the conjuring up images of life that what jewelry does as well. It's you're like going through this incredible thought process when you see a piece of jewelry that warrants that. So
I'm curious to ask, what do you see happening in the jewelry world? We have been in a time where there has been a lot of talk about big brands. Here are the icons, and everybody needs to have an X, a Y, and a Z. And one of the hypotheses when I started at Present was people, and I think particularly the most sophisticated consumers, were tired of the hegemony of big luxury. They are tired of everybody having the same thing. Is that true?
I think regrettably, no. I think a lot of people are not tired, and I think they still want those items. And I think that's fine. I think there's a...
What's the draw there? Why do they want those items?
They're safe, they're time-tested, they're approved. It's wearing that safety of community, of we all...
I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm okay, I'm cool, it's all good. I've got my, whatever, my love bracelet. You know, I'm now...
You can say love bracelet.
Yeah, I am rich, I'm wearing a love bracelet. But, and I love Cartier and I love bracelets. But I think there's plenty of consumers out there, and I think there's a lot of people that are ready for something else and also want a love bracelet and other things to mix with it and stack with it. So it's not one or the other, and it's not a binary. There's room for everyone. But I do think there are a lot of people who are interested in something else.
who wants to eat at the same restaurant every night? That's why I always think, like, why are we putting more out there? Because you want to see what other people's spin are on things. I don't want the same great restaurant or the same, everyone needs some variety. And it's exciting to think that artists are out there in a room somewhere talking and coming up with something different. That's exciting. It's like music. A new musician comes out and you're like, thank God. People are still putting their heart and soul into creating new pieces and sticking with the struggle because it's work.
And there is also that consumer that always wants to be the trendsetter and likes to always be the one that someone says, oh, what's that bracelet? Like, not the one that's wearing the love bracelet, but someone that says,
What's that code?
yeah.
The new.
Yeah, what is that?
You've tapped into the new.
Exactly.
And how do people discover those things? What is the media today? I think once upon a time, people would open a fashion magazine and see what's new. Where do I get new ideas now?
I think it's at Will's Notebook. It's
Follow and subscribe today.
Yeah, no, it's a full mix. I think people are definitely still reading Town and Country, and I think people are, reading all of our heritage publications in that way. But Instagram, Substack, TikTok has all become like exponentially. At present.
Thank you.
Yeah, and retail environments themselves have become their own editorial. It used to be that we relied on Vogue and W, et cetera, to relay the information to us, and now it's just being relayed to us by the brands themselves and the retailers themselves.
How do I figure out what's good? There is so much in the world, and I'm constantly bombarded with images.
I mean, I guess there are certain people you could trust by their opinions. Someone like me, you would, if you're looking for a hoop earring, I've listed out the hoop earrings I like on my Instagram. And I think those refined voices and opinions that you trust are very valuable these days. But I don't know. How do you all?
Coming from a reputable
Yes.
place, because consumers don't want to be guinea pigs and spend their money on something that's going to fall out. It's going to break. You want quality work, so you have to trust the source, the representative that's telling you about the brand.
What's missing in the world? When you look at the world of jewelry, what should exist that does not?
Maybe more conversation. I don't know. Jewelry is such a great conversation piece because it does bring people together. I don't know. That's one thing I can think.
Won't know until it's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when it arrives, you know that it was missing. I think it's hard to imagine that white space necessarily.
That's beautiful.
I just asked all my readers or audience about Christmas gifts they're looking for. So everyone's looking for a hoop earring. That's what's missing, apparently.
The year of the hoop.
Desperate for hoops.
Yeah, jump through them.
Yeah. So we've got them.
There's some lovely examples here if you would like to take a look at it and share them. What about other material objects? Are there things that you collect? Are there things that you have a similar passion for that you do for jewelry?
I love art. I wouldn't call myself a collector, but I have pieces that I love, and many of them actually, few of them do have some sort of imbued biography. There's an artist by the name of Jack Coulter has synesthesia, and he
Tell us what that means.
So synesthesia is when you have a sense that appears through another sense. So, for example, when he hears music, he sees color. He in his mind's eye, he sees color. When he hears a saxophone, it's green, and if it's a C sharp, it's like a lime green. And so he paints this. And one of the paintings that I own of his is an important song to me because I just love music. And music, I would say, is my biggest collection.
Yes.
And I still have records and cassettes and CDs and mixtapes, and I like to make mixtapes. And so he created a painting of a song that I really care about.
Did he make it for you, or did you find it?
He made it for me.
Yeah.
So the process you do is that you give him 3 songs, and he'll paint all 3, and then you can choose which one you want, which one speaks to you.
And did you mention his name?
Yeah, his name's Jack Coulter, and he's still under 30. He's just a genius. He's
Wow.
amazing. Yeah.
I like things from my childhood, shells on the beach, and you've been to my studio. I do curio shelves of like little dogs on a leash that were my grandmother's, with a piece I made in high school with a shell or a piece of wood, and so I put them under a bell jar and make all kinds of different curio. I was fascinated with the curio cabinets in Paris, so that's what I like to do, is put together little theaters of objects, past and present.
I get on these weird tangents on eBay, and like my current one is I'm obsessed with silver Navajo boxes, pill boxes. They're super tiny, but they're inlaid with turquoise.
Ooh.
And you can, like, if you buy them from a fancy store, they're maybe $600.
Yeah.
But if you find them on eBay, they can be maybe like $60.
Yeah.
So don't bid against me, but I'm very, like, and I haven't won that many yet, but this is my current obsession. Just, like,
Where did you
gorgeous.
discover that?
I guess on Instagram. I don't remember where exactly it started, but I'm really into them. So that's what's going on right now.
Yeah.
It used to be 1950s ornaments from Poland for the Christmas ornaments. That was what I was really into. But
That's
now
cool.
Yeah.
What about you?
I love jewelry. I love bringing jewelry into my life, and I think it's particularly things that are made by people who I admire. And so I again, have that same combination between, all right, you have to fall in love with how it looks, but like why it exists, I think is really important to me. And then there's all the other silly things that I like. I like shoes, I like bags, but those things are fun but fleeting. Yeah, I don't know, maybe this whole thing is my group therapy to go through my own issues with materialism, but Are there others, Adam, you mentioned one fascinating artist. Are there other makers, creators, brands that you admire that you think deserve more attention?
I'm sure there are. Jack was my one. You guys go ahead.
I'm more stuck in the past. I love like Fabergé,
Yeah.
Tiffany from the 1920s. That's more where I am. I don't shop very much for clothes. I love making quality work, but as far as like when you're talking about materialist, I'm like, oh geez, like I need a couple black tops, really good shoes, and like nice jeans. I'll spend money on those. But other than that, I'm more steeped in the past.
Are there other jewelry makers? You mentioned a couple of kind of legacies, but is there anybody working today whose work you admire?
I'd have to think for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're definitely like Georges L'Enfant is
He's
one of my
passed too, yeah.
he's one of my favorites and really inspires me. And I don't know. I'm sure. I think Foundry is
kinda
doing some
think-
interesting things, but I don't know much about that process. But I think she's done an amazing job of building her brand and those talismans. I think it's brilliant. So I admire that business, but the work itself. Not to say that I don't admire her work, I do, but I don't know a lot of people who are doing what Heidi does, which is a person at a bench, hand building it herself. I don't personally know. I'm sure there are, but Polly Wales I think is interesting. I guess she does that.
There's a lot of great contemporary jewelry out there. I just am, and with my books from Fabergé, Cartier, Buccellati, Bulgari, like the older stuff.
And we've actually started doing part of our company now. We have a Wonder Common, and part of that is because we feel like there's so many nods to the You talk about materialism. Do you have to buy something that's new? Can you seek on eBay for the things that are from our past that should be unearthed and other people don't know about? So I think curation now, in terms of jewelry, is when you ask the question, is there anything that's missing? I think there are some brilliant curators out there, like Particulars. I don't know if you know that account, New York City Particulars. She's wonderful, yeah. And Jules Jador. There's a lot of interesting curators who have illuminated me to pieces that I never would have seen otherwise. Like maybe I even knew the artist, but I would not have seen it, and
Mark,
that's exciting
that's
to me.
part of your mission, a big part of your mission.
Yeah. And just to give credit where credit is due, and Heidi is far too humble to brag about this, but she has a piece from earlier in her career that's being featured now at the Smithsonian in their permanent collection. And so when you talk about, okay, these are the things that are truly enduring, for that to be brought into a permanent collection at the National Museum of effectively material culture just speaks to the quality of what you're doing there.
Huge honor. Yeah, thank you.
And for you, things that you admire that deserve more spotlight?
Yeah, I prepared my.
He got it in
I
advance.
heard about this in advance.
Oh, man.
I have 3.
Ask better questions
I'm
next
just
time,
going to use
Shulman.
ChatGPT.
I love the jeweler Judy Geib. She's in Brooklyn, and
yeah.
she's wonderful and so creative and really a bench jeweler that's just, she makes these amazing necklaces out of all the pieces from old necklaces that she made, and just, I don't know, you have to go to her studio and you'll just fall in love with the whole thing. And the pieces are incredible as well, even if you don't go, but she's wonderful. Lauren Nicole, who's based in, oh, you're wearing it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, is that piece? I love that piece.
She's
Yeah,
a
beautiful.
real bench jeweler as well.
Extraordinary,
You know,
yeah.
Out in,
Hermosa Beach.
yeah.
Oh no, I love her work because she comes from like an archaeological.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
She was,
22 karat, I think. And she has like the Viking.
yeah, she made a ship.
I love her work in the glass.
It's amazing, and she
quartz.
it's also
That's
out of
rock crystal, yeah.
She worked at the Met as an archaeologist.
Oh,
Basically.
wow.
No, I
And then
love her.
Now she lives on the beach in this condo, or not like in this house, not a condo, like that. You just don't think that these creations are being made like 4 blocks from the beach on this workbench that you think you would find in like a
19th century Florence.
exactly
Yeah.
in Hermosa Beach. And so that's amazing. And then I love this young jeweler Bernard James out of Brooklyn, who like has exquisite taste. Really, it's all very diamondy, diamond heavy, but it's, I don't know, it's personal jewelry, but with a bit of a modern edge. And he also has just exquisite taste. So he has this collection with USM, like the furniture brand, and I just love what he's doing. I think his store is beautiful, and I think there's a lot of legs there. We're gonna see a lot from this person.
Cool.
Yeah.
Did you come up with anything else during your
No, but I love
ChatGPT
these.
search?
No, I love these answers. I'm excited. I'm just with kids a lot, so I don't know. I don't get out much, but thank you for illuminating me.
The Jack collection.
Exactly. Yeah. Good.
We love Foundry too. I love her.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
Fantastic.
And anybody who does something to bring more people into jewelry. I think that there's so many things that compete for people's attention. And anybody who does something to talk more about our little corner of the world and gives an introduction to it, I think is fabulous. Thank you all. It's such a joy to talk with you. We are here tonight to debut the Vault collection from James Banks. This is something that Adam and Heidi have been working on for a long time, which is the evolution of their series in code. And so we hope everybody here in the room has a chance to come up and play with that and to see all of the other beautiful jewelry that they've brought. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being materialists. Thank you for being passionate fans and supporters of great artists. And these guys will be up here to talk about the pieces. We'll have more food and wine and hang out. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining us for this special live episode of The Materialist. If you want to learn more about the Vault collection, please check it out on our website, www.atpresent.com. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like and subscribe to the podcast to hear more. The Materialist is a production of At Present, matchmaker to extraordinary jewelry.